From ABC News Radio, KMET 1490 in Southern California. This is BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgensen.
All right, welcome out to BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio. I'm your host, Tyler Jorgensen, and today here in the dojo, we have a very special treat to have another ninja. It's not often that there gets to be two ninjas in here in the dojo, so excited to have Lyann Nguyen, the Credit Ninja, who I have had the pleasure of knowing now for a couple of years. Welcome out to the show, Lyann. Nice to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me, my ninja buddy.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when we met, and you're like, Biz Ninja, I'm the Credit Ninja. And I thought it was great because, everyone else are gurus or other things, but we're ninjas, and that's cool.
Yeah, and there was a podcast ninja too.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yep. I'm sure there's plenty of other ninjas out there, but none are as cool as these two.
That's right.
So yeah, we met at Dana Derricks's Dream 100 Con in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which neither of us are from. And we've stayed connected since then and know a lot of the same people. But for those that have never heard of you before, what is the Credit Ninja?
Yeah, so I'm a credit expert, mostly mentoring in the credit scene. Basically analyze where the credit is and what we can do to build it, improve it, and scale it. Because most of the entrepreneurs are looking to get more money or to fix something in the past so that they can either start a new business or scale their business. And as you know, it's great that you have a dream. It's great that you have a plan. But if you don't have the finances together, where is that plan going?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions around that I know will be very beneficial to listeners. But let's scale back a little bit, peel back the curtain, rewind time.
Yeah.
How did you get here? Why did you decide to become a credit expert? Did it happen? Was it deliberate, or did you just become an expert and decide to do it as a business?
It's actually a combination. I started in the credit field back in '98 when it was the first technology boom. And during that time, I was part of a company that is kind of similar to what Credit Karma is now, where they handle the data and they help people manage their credit. And from there, they recommend different types of lending, credit cards, and so forth. That was back in 1998. After that, we had a crash, a technology crash, one of the biggest one, similar to 2008. And I moved to Vegas, and from there started consulting in the credit space and kind of evolved into the debit and credit side, where we actually do money transfer, things, the technology that's similar to Venmo today and PayPal. And like a non, you don't have to you can do it on the phone and RFID. So that was my background, is the technology end of it. But then in 2008, when we had another crash happen, that was very devastating to most people. People lost their homes, they lost their jobs, they lost money, they lost their credit. I personally went through it. I lost from the company. I lost 17 million worth of my equity in the company. And then in addition, I had lawsuits that were pending against me that basically had my freedom at stake. So it was the worst time in my life. And I thought I was just going to give up. But you just got to build up that, strength and that courage to go on day by day. That's all you can deal with. Similar to the case that we're in right now, where you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. You're just trying to make it through the next day. So because you have this, coping mechanism, you just kind of deal with it. So my house was being foreclosed. So I had to deal with that. I had credit cards that I lived off that they finally shut them all down. Because when they see that you're not paying or if the balances are too high, the banks take a position of just closing all down because they want to protect themselves, which is what's happening right now, because you'll see a lot of those closures. Third thing is that now I have lawsuits that are against me. So you just have to deal with one thing at a time. I dealt with the lawsuit that was done in 3 years. After that, I dealt with the foreclosure of my home, which I turned into a short sale. So that way it's not hurting my credit as often, as bad as the foreclosure. Then dealing with the credit card information. So I started disputing, kind of searching online, finding some people that knew a little bit more than me, and started working on my file. All of a sudden, all these things started falling off, and then started applying for little cards. And from there, this light bulb came on. And I basically said, if that happened to me, how many other business people lost their money and came back stronger, but their credit is still damaged and they have the money to fix it. So I just thought, who can I talk to? See, that's because you went through it.
Yep.
I talked to my CPA, my attorney, and I found out that they have like high net worth clients that need their credit done. So I started working on those files for free.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got the results. And then from there, we got the testimonies and started just going into those circles. And you just create a name for yourself in that circle. And they kept saying, God, you're such a ninja in the credit stuff. And so just combining the two names, I'm like, I'm going to just grab that name on Instagram, Credit Ninja, and I'll deal with it later because I don't know anything about it. And from that point, I met Gary Vaynerchuk, and he was really big on Instagram about 3 years ago. And I wanted to meet him really bad. And one of my friends, what's his name, Josh 40, said, oh, you know what? I'm going to an event that I'm going to meet Gary Vaynerchuk. And I didn't know ClickFunnels community. I didn't know Russell Brunson. But all I know is I really want to meet Gary. So he actually invited me through Kevin Anson, who is Russell Brunson's videographer. And I didn't know he was a videographer. I just showed up because my intent was to meet Gary Vaynerchuk. I didn't know it was Russell Brunson's event. And from that point on, I spoke to Gary and I said, I really want to build this up. And what he told me was, you're going to either go all in or don't do it at all. So I went all in. And so I got involved with the ClickFunnels community, built that audience down and helped their files, and then just grew it from there. So the main thing is just helping different organizations and different influential groups. And from there, when you serve that community, people know that you're there to serve them, not to sell them. I think that's the key. And it just fell on my lap, basically. I didn't choose the field. I have the technology end, but the part that was very meaningful is changing lives.
Yeah. So a couple of fun connections there. One, so I know Josh, and I know Kevin. Kevin and I actually grew up together in the same town, same community, went to the same schools, and have known each other since we were kids. And then I was at that event with Gary Vaynerchuk and Josh 40.
Okay.
And so for those watching, you can see the world record, the Guinness Book of World Record on my wall behind me. And that's from that event that Lyann's talking about, where after Gary spoke, we went down onto the Boise State University Smurf turf and set the world record in soccer. But then we always say in like small text, it's actually bubble soccer. But it was still pretty cool.
That was fun times. Yeah.
That was a cool event. And that's funny. I don't think our paths crossed at that event. There was a lot of really cool people there. It was a big event. There was a couple hundred people. So, but that's neat. So, but really cool. So that's only a few years ago, where you really decided, hey, I'm going to go all in on this. I'm going to really scale it up. Again, we know a lot of the same people. I know a lot of people that you've helped, and I've watched over the last couple of years as you've got swag, you've got more things, your business has grown. What, from a business side of things, you got that advice 3 years ago, you started doing things. Looking back 3 years ago now, what's one thing that you would have done differently 3 years ago compared to how you handled it?
I wouldn't have waited so long.
Okay. And what does that mean? So not waiting, what would you have done differently?
Yeah. So most people think when they get bad credit or they file bankruptcy, automatically, you got to wait 7 to 10 years. That's actually it's not really true. It's just theory. But the thing is, once you start filing BK or it goes to collection, you can start disputing that right away and start building your credit and adding positive items. I wish I didn't wait for 5 or 7 years. I wish I would have done it in 5 to 7 months, which I'm able to now do for my clients and cut down that time. And remember, these people have to be serious, and it's a business decision to invest in themselves so that they can get their credit score better, so that they can make this big, massive action to grow their business, to get access to funding, to expand, to hire, to buy supplies, whatever you may do, whether it's e-commerce, social media marketing, YouTube channel, whatever you need to, you still need this financing. So don't wait. That's my best. It's that you have all the tools now.
Take action now. So let's look at a couple of important things. Is debt good or bad?
Both. So Debt is good when you actually are using it to grow your business and have a return on your investment. Debt is bad when you buy things and you don't have a plan of action to pay it back and get bigger lines. So people go, well, I don't like credit. Credit is bad for you. Well, credit is actually good for you. It's the debt on credit that doesn't make you money that's bad for you.
Got it. So that's very cash flow quadrant, right? That's very the difference between good credit and bad credit. Good credit is credit that you're utilizing or debt that you're using to grow and increase your income. Bad debt, bad credit would be the kind that you're using to buy a Gucci belt that you can't afford to look to impress people that don't really care about you, right?
Exactly.
And so so now that we've established that some debt is good, and one of those things is for business owners, which most of the listeners of this show are entrepreneurs and hustlers, or people that are building their own future. What are some ways or common misconceptions around credit and debt that these people are facing?
Yeah. So with credit, they go, well, I only need one card or two cards. Well, that's a misnomer. It's really good to have relationships with different banks. And I'll tell you why. What if you had all your relationships with Amex and Amex decides that for some reason they close all your account and that's the only card that's reporting on your report, your credit report, your score's going to plummet because all those available lines are going to be gone. Or if you just put all your business relationship credit cards with Bank of America, and for some reason, maybe something went wrong with a checking account, they close all your accounts and all that history goes away. That is the saddest thing. So as you're building your credit journey, build it so that you have different relationship with different banks. Don't put all your eggs in one basket and actually spread them out. And even at one bank, you want to have multiple credit cards so that you can move those balances around. That's a game. Because what if one card you're almost maxed out because for some reason the interest went up? Well, if you had other cards in place, you can now move the limits over so that if it's at 80%, when you move those limit over, it's going to actually drop down because you have all these other lines that you can manipulate, keep them at $500, move 10,000 over, then now you have 30,000 out of 5,000. It's not as bad as, you just have to manipulate. It's just the more you have, the more you can play with.
Okay. And so what that means is that there's a little bit of an education that people need to have on how this works and how credit cards impact your credit, as well as, your credit score, as well as how the banks look at it. So obviously so you're the expert on that.
Let me give you a visual.
Sure.
So these are my credit cards. This is one book. I had two of these. And there are about 40, 50 cards in here, and the balances are zero. But the cool part is that I use these cards to float over the purchases so that I can get points over here. And these points can now be redeemed as cash or travel and so forth. So that actually supports my business. This is called good debt.
Right.
Okay.
Now, do you think everyone should go that extreme, or are you, because you're the credit ninja, you have you're the expert, you have that many, but most people should have how many cards?
Well, the average is actually 21.
The average of what they should have, or the average they
should have for their profile to be in the 800s. Why? Because the banks really look at how many cards you can manage, right? If you can only manage one or two, usually your score is not that high. But if you're able to manage 30, 40 cards at a time, that's a skill, and that's a ninja skill. And
right. So they see that additional, the increase of trade lines as a response, as a representation of responsibility.
Right. And the
credit worthiness.
And some of these cards date back to 92 or 1980s. Okay. Wow. So you're able to now have really old cards and also high limit cards. So a combination of the two. I mean, unless some people can't manage more than 3 cards, so don't do it. This game is not for everyone. Because if you can't even pay on time 2 to 3 cards, this is not for you. Just manage those few cards in there. And maybe if you do open some, put them away. Put them away and then have a schedule to use it every 6 months. That way you're not really using it. You're just stimulating the file and keeping it active. Yeah.
So, and that's, I think, really important. What you're talking about in this is an advanced skill, right? This is not for someone who's still working on figuring out how to be responsible and have discipline with their credit. And this is for people who, hey, you understand the difference between good debt, bad debt. You have a business, you're ready to grow, and you need to start really improving your score and your file so that you have greater opportunities
Right.
towards, right? So if you're going through a business acquisition, you need to acquire some debt, and these are the kind of things where credit can help. So what are some other reasons that today's entrepreneurs need to have a really good credit score?
Yeah. So if they're trying to lease equipment, or they're trying to buy a car or lease a car so that they can actually use that as a business expense, the companies still, these banks still run your personal credit until you start building the third part of credit, which is corporate credit, where it's all based on your EIN and corporate credit. That takes longer to do. So in the meantime, 80 or 90% of the population, they actually run your personal credit. Or if you're planning to buy a house, and a lot of people are now working out of the home, especially right now with coronavirus.
Yeah.
So they purchase a home and they use certain rooms of the house for business, and they take as right. You still got to get that mortgage loan, and they will run your personal credit. There's very few people that actually get mortgage loan approved with just their business DUNS number or so forth. So it's very important if you're trying to refinance a car, like especially during this time. Say you pay a higher interest when you first got your car, and you're stuck at home now, and you're looking at all your expenses, because it's expense cutting time right now. And one of the item is, say you pay 10% or 12% on that car loan, and you want to refinance it. Guess what? You're going to have to make sure your credit's decent. Then if you can get it down to 4 or 5%, that's a lot of money you can save that you can put back in your business and grow your business, because it's trapped in that loan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. What are some other things that entrepreneurs should be doing right now, just to, what are maybe either some other credit tips or just money management tips that you have for them?
Yeah. So I would say organization is very important during this time, and you're stuck at home anyway. So might as well make like a spreadsheet, list all the credit cards that you think that you know that you have. If not, go to credit. No, some people don't know how many.
No, for sure. That's why I'm smiling. Yeah.
Yeah. They might have opened a Macy's credit card like during Christmas, and they forgot about it. And they may have put a charge of like $20-$30, and they forgot to pay it. So this is the time that you self-audit yourself, okay? And go to Credit Karma. It's a free site, but it lists all the credit cards that they have on you, at least on 2 of the bureaus, TransUnion and Equifax. List them all down. And then in the next column, you want to put like the due date. And the next column, you want to put what the limit is. These are all critical items. The second one is how much the balance is. And then the next one, you want to put, I have a spreadsheet. If anyone want to DM me at Credit Ninja on Instagram, I will send them the spreadsheet and they can fill it in. Okay, this is really good tip. And then another item is when it reports to the bureau. So the date that it reports to the bureau, if you know the date, you can actually manipulate your score, because you want to look as pretty as possible. And then after they report you, guess what happened? You can max that card out, and it still shows as 0. That's power for you. See?
Yeah, that's interesting. Those are ways you can leverage that in. And sometimes it's a simple. So years ago, I worked in the mortgage industry, and we had to do those kind of things because the difference of 1 or 2 points sometimes made the difference of whether or not someone could buy the house they wanted. And then at other times, it was a difference of 1 or 2 points changed the interest rate to the point where over the life of the loan, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars of savings, right? So I wasn't a ninja at it, but we knew the basics of like, okay, let's pay these things off. What people would do is they would send us their savings account, right? Yeah. And then they would use that money to then pay off their credit card. And then, so they'd have savings and their credit paid off, even though it was really the same dollars. But those are little tiny things that people had to do back then in order to just improve their credit. Now you get to do ninja hacks on that.
Right. With those things make a difference. Like you say, you're on the cusp of getting that loan. So it could be like from one category to the next, and making those minor adjustments will give you the approval that you need. And that's money long-term that you can put back. It's so critical. Sure. And again, let's touch on the mortgage right now, because you've seen all the news. Chase and all the big banks are now requiring 20% down because they want to mitigate their risk. Second thing is they need a 700 plus score, sometimes 720. So now the requirements are even harder than ever because they're losing so much money. They are now kind of mitigating their risk. So definitely get the best score possible. Here's another tip. Once your credit is decent, start getting business credit cards. that are, you run your personal credit to get the business credit card. But then once those debts start reporting, they do not report on your personal. So now you can shift that debt into business credit cards. And that way you can now always preserve your personal credit file, and you can still get more loans. And then you have the third box, which is corporate credit, which is more advanced. So you have 3 different baskets of credit. And if you can slowly grow them all at the same time, then now you have 3 different sources. It's a game.
Awesome. Yeah, that is. What are the numbers? Like, what numbers should people be going for? What should their credit target goal credit scores? What should that be?
Ideally, better than 720. You can get most loans. If you want really good rates, anywhere from 750 and above would be great.
And the average in America, I think, is in like the mid 600s right now.
Yeah,
right?
650 right now. And after the pandemic, it's going to go lower because people are missing payments. And when you miss like 30-day or 60-day payments, your score is going to plummet like 100, 200 points. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, big time. And I mean, for those business owners that have been through this kind of stuff, this is probably giving you a little bit of PTSD, right? Where you're like, man, I remember 2008, or I remember 98, or I remember 2 years ago when something happened, and you've had to go through some trauma. If you're like a lot of us, you've gone through some of these things, and it's very real for you. So depending on where people are at, their exact strategies are going to be different. I really encourage you to reach out to Lyann on Instagram. It's Credit Ninja, but or you can go to her website, which is
recredit.co. So it's recredit.co. It's like rebuilding your credit, basically. That's what it is.
Absolutely. So because everything's going to be different based on where each person is, right? If they're in a different part of the journey. But let's say, again, most entrepreneurs have gone through, and this is an interesting thing where I once talked to someone who said they don't work with anybody who hasn't already gone through a cycle at least twice, meaning they haven't had some success and then had it fall and fail, then done it again, and then they're on their third one. And they said the best people to work with are people who have gone through it at least twice. Because now the first time you don't think you can fail, right? You're like, entrepreneurs have to be optimistic. It's part of the game. Yeah. So, but you don't want to be infallible, right? You have to know that it can fall apart. The second time, now you're a little bit cautious, but you know how to build, but you also know how to play some defense. Yeah. But businesses fail, or you sell them off and move on. But by the third time, people are in a place where, hey, they've got some experience under their belt. They know how things work, both in the uptime and the downtime. So we have entrepreneurs at all different stages. They're in their first one, they're in their third. What where do you like to help people? At what stage?
I think at every stage, because everyone has a credit score and it's changing all the time, depending on your debt load and what your goals are and so forth. So I'm in the business where it's recession proof. When the economy is great, people are now having the money to fix their problem. When the economy is bad, they got to get a better score. So they really invest in themselves. So I'm really blessed to have gone through such a horrible journey, but I feel like I'm more prepared to help people. And at the same time, I'm pretty confident and I have the courage to do it. And I want to be able to instill that in all of my clients. And that's part of my coaching mentorship program. Yeah. It's higher level, but it's for a specific type of person that's ready for someone to guide them through, to get them through and get them there faster and get them there, in a like more strategic manner. And depending on their situation, what their goals are, we reverse engineer that and get them there. So if it's e-commerce or YouTubing or Forex trading or social media marketing or ClickFunnels, like they want to do their own project, then we would reverse engineer them, find out what their end game is going to be and get them there.
Yep.
It's very customized.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you share with us some recent examples of some things, some results that you've been able to get for people?
Yeah, so this young lady came to us. Her name is Nancy. She works for T-Mobile. Met her about 3 months ago. She found me on social media. And she wanted to get an e-commerce store, like an Amazon store. And the cost would be anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000. She might need a few credit cards to put it in the file. And so after speaking to her, we went through a series of things in her file where we cleaned up certain things, added some positive items because she's fairly young. Okay. And her goal was about 30,000 in credit cards, whether it's personal or business, she wanted a combination. So in about a month and a half, we got into a credit card sequence, which is a step-by-step way that we put people through to get the approvals. So about 3 weekends ago, we got her $199,000 in credit card lines, a combination of personal and business credit. And she was blown away because in her mind, she was looking for about 25,000. And remember, individual results vary, but we coach her through the entire time to make sure that when she goes through the sequence, she get the highest approval possible. That's a very high approval rate in her first round. So that's just an example of what we're able to do.
So you guys aren't, so with Recredit and with, you, the credit ninja, you're not just helping people improve their score. You're really coaching them through an entire process of enhancing everything and getting their credit cards, getting everything set up, setting up those systems. That's really cool. And
another thing, Tyler, is like sometimes people get so hung on the score, but if they're not doing anything with the score and getting the right credit card, then it's useless. It's leveraging the score so that you can get financing to get to your end game and impact in your business. I just think the score doesn't mean anything until you're able to do something with it.
Yeah, it's true. All right. So we're wrapping up the show. I always like to ask this question to my guests. So business is about building us the lifestyle that we want. I know that you travel and you like to do things. What is one major item that pending, travel restrictions or the world loosening things back up, what's one major item on your bucket list that you're going to do in the next 12 months?
I want to go to the Maldives.
Cool. I love that you knew that answer. That's good. That's a cool place. Yeah.
Well, because I travel all the time and it's very odd for me to be home in 1 week at a time. Normally I come back, switch out my luggage and move on. And as you can see in the background, I love flying private jets.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Let's get back on the private jet thing and just do my circuit. I start from the West Coast all the way to Florida and Puerto Rico, and I come back usually on a 2-week span. But I like to do something on an island, like a mastermind, because I always try to tie in business and relaxation at the same time, because it's the experience and memories that no one can ever take away from you, ever. Even if you lose all your money, it's the experience. And I love that I'm able to experience things with you, meeting the community and helping more people. I think that's an impact for me. That's more fulfilling for me than just the money, because money can be made, money can be lost, but this experience can never be taken away.
I totally agree. Thank you so much for coming out on the show. Please go follow Lyann Nguyen on her website is recredit.co or Credit Ninja on Instagram. Thank you for coming out. It's your turn to go out and do something.
Thank you for listening to BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio with Tyler Jorgensen. Please make sure to subscribe so you're first to hear new interviews and episodes. If you found this podcast to be valuable, please share it with a friend. Don't forget to visit our online dojo at bizninja.com to claim your reward for listening to the show.